Welcome to Get Motivated with Donato Parisi, a show designed to reach you where you are, focusing on the fact that you can be anything you want and desire. All you have to do is get motivated. If you need a challenge in your life, then look no further. Get Motivated with Donato begins now.
Breathing is so important and huge. I mean, you said it almost like it's like just a normal thing, but if we take some of those breathing like exercises, kind of like what you're saying there, it'll lower our blood pressure. It'll reduce our stress. It'll do all of these beneficial things for us just by taking that minute out, like you said, and reflecting.
Yeah, be surprised how much of a difference that makes. Like you said, it really does in our minds, our bodies, that mind-body-spirit connection. People don't realize how profound that is. They don't realize how connected those pieces of ourselves truly are, that everything in one area affects the other area. And so if you think about anxiety, for example, if you have a health condition, and you have health anxiety, so you're anxious about this health condition, you're worried about what's going to happen or what this diagnosis is. Think about how that can actually affect the anxiety, can make your symptoms worse, right? And then having the condition in itself can cause the anxiety. And energetically, it's so important, like you said, feeding our mind, body, and our spirit, giving it what it needs, right? All those different pieces. It helps give us more of that peace and that calm and that fulfillment and that clarity that we're looking for. When people don't breathe, we just tend to breathe really shallowly all of the time, and we're not paying attention. It's almost like we're holding our breath constantly. That's not good for any piece of you. And so when you can really breathe and you can connect on all levels, you can become more aware of what's going on inside of you. And that awareness is always that first step, because we can't do anything about it until we're aware of it. And so checking in with yourself increases that awareness and helps us get back connected to all three of those levels of ourselves.
Yep. I love it. So we're in a new book together.
We are.
It hasn't been released yet, but it'll be September, I think.
Yep, coming up in the fall. Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. Your Next Best You. Wonderful topic. I'm really.
Is there anything you want to give us for like a sneak preview, a spoiler?
I would be happy to do that. Absolutely. I can give you a little sneak preview of what that's going to be. So in Your Next Best You, my book chapter is called Stepping into Your Future Self. And so in that chapter, I'm going to be talking about the power of choice in our lives. That we truly do have that power, and how important it is to realize that, and how in the different seasons and transitions that we go through in our journeys and our lives, we can make a choice to create the vision for and step into becoming that next best version of ourselves. But we can also do that at any time. So if you think about in these life transitions that we have, you graduate from school and you are an adult and you go to work, right? Or you get married, or you have kids, or then you're an empty nester, or, all these different parts and pieces of our lives. There are those natural transitions where we step into a new identity or a new role, right? But we actually have the power to choose to step into whatever our next best is anytime we wish to do that. And so I tell the story of some of my personal transformations. And then I also walk the readers through the steps of the process that I actually take my clients through to step into their future selves. And so it's going to be, I think, a really great chapter for people to read, to realize that they can empower themselves to create who they want to become.
That's awesome. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I always think of things like choices. We always make choices and decisions, right? but like you're incorporating that with that life transformation part, those different chapters, if you will, in your life that come up. My son example is about to move out and kind of start growing up, right? A little bit more, getting out of the, family home in a sense. I mean, so that's a new thing for him. It'll be a new thing for us because we'll be in that empty nest, and, so talk a little bit more about some of those things, like because those sound to some degree like good things, right? But I know my wife, for example, is probably going to have a little hard time with being an empty nester. So how do we deal with those things? That how do we handle that kind of stuff?
It can be those transitions, right? There's a new season, right? Let's say that you're stepping into. There's also sometimes a grieving process for the loss of the last season that you were in. And that happens a lot, like you said, with empty nesters. And, it's like, what do I do now? Because they're so focused on taking care of everyone else. Now, your kids still need you, but not in the same way necessarily. And of course, you have grandkids now, which is wonderful. Yeah. So she gets to take care of them, but it's different. Right? It's different than it was before. And so when we can start focusing in on getting to know ourselves and who we are and who we want to become and what we want this next chapter and this next season to be for ourselves and what we want to become, that can really help with some of those feelings of loss from the last one, because life does change and it is different. Now we get to choose, even if we don't have that life transition, if you do, focusing in on what do I want to create in this next season can really be helpful, right? It can be supportive with the grieving process of those types of challenges when life is just different than it was yesterday. But if let's say you're just kind of in a funk, or you are feeling stagnant, or you're feeling like something needs to change, and there's not a catalyst from the outside to make you change, right? To motivate you to do that. It's about getting that motivation internally from within of, what, I can make tomorrow be the beginning of a new season. You don't have to wait until January 1st. For a new year and to set new goals.
Right.
You can choose to do it tomorrow. We have these milestones that are set up for us, but we can do it at any time. And so whenever you're ready and you say, what, I want to step into my next, I want to figure out what that best version of me is, or I want to figure out what that purpose or that calling, is in my life. Maybe you are searching for that. To me, when we're talking about getting motivated, that means that you're driven by a reason or a purpose or an incentive, maybe to achieve something. And so when we're talking about motivation, it's that desire to continuously strive towards more meaning and purpose. And to me, that's what striving for that next best version of ourselves is about. It's focusing on growth and focusing on evolving. And so, while it can be sad to leave the old life behind, we also can focus on that growth mindset of growing into this next chapter and embracing whatever that has to give us, having that gratitude for what we have had and what we're going to have moving forward, and learning, kind of full circle from what we were talking about earlier, learning from the lessons of the past in order to become our next best in the future.
Awesome. Attitude of gratitude. That's so huge, especially, right? And I like you said, the growth, like having that growth mindset. We got to, let's not focus on the negative stuff, but let's learn how to grow, move past, and have that attitude of gratitude. It reminds me of the saying from Ray Kroc, when you're green, you're growing, when you're ripe, you rot. It's one of my favorite quotes because it just means so much. that it is that we got to keep growing. We got to have that mindset of just learning and adapting and moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good point for us to know that you've brought out in these transitional periods, these new chapters that we're going into in our lives, the new season. We have 4 seasons, or at least some of us do in parts of the country.
Yes, exactly.
Here in Minnesota, we get all 4. It seems like just one, but with winter. But we see that transition, right? So it is a natural thing that happens in life, and we can kind of learn from that and grow. So I love that. There is so much that I think we can, just continue to talk about when it comes to all of these things, like we've touched on, our physical, our mental, our, spiritual. As you're a therapist, especially, we've probably touched on a couple of things that are pretty big things, but what is maybe one of the things that we haven't touched on that's also important? Like we've touched on stress and whatnot, that's more emotional, but it also may affect us physically.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really important is to understand that it really is those underlying beliefs, right, that influence our thoughts, that influence our emotions, and then influence our behaviors. And so what I mean by that is, for example, let's talk about us pushing through, right? And that type A, like you were talking about, that high achiever mindset. And so, for example, one of the things that I had to overcome when we're talking about limiting beliefs, it's just something that holds you back or keeps you from being able to grow and move forward. And one of mine that I grew up with, that was instilled in me, was you have to work hard to make money, right? A lot of us had that. You have to work hard. So whatever that is, you have to work really hard. And that was one of the reasons why I was pushing myself so much. And when I figured out that I was in that chronic burnout cycle and it was time to make a change, that was one of the things that needed to shift, is that I didn't have to work myself into the ground. I didn't have to work to the detriment of my own health in order to be successful. And so in shifting that, then it changes your thought process around it. And sometimes we have to change the thoughts, honestly, in order to influence the behaviors, because sometimes those beliefs just really want to hold on so tight. And so challenging those beliefs, sometimes we'll get a lot of resistance around that, but we can shift and say, you know what, I'm learning, or I'm growing, or I'm getting better at, or, I can take care of myself and take care of others, and so by taking care of myself, I can take care of others.
That's a good point. Like, how do we reprogram ourselves?
Yeah.
Because it is instilled in us. I mean, you touched on some stuff in before here too. We learn things as a child. Certain things are instilled in us where we hear it over and over, and it just programs ourselves. Some things are good, some things are bad. We have certain experiences or things that happen to us, especially if we're young. That might be a detriment to us. We build up defenses and walls, and so we take all this baggage with us, be it good or bad. I mean, how do we start sifting through this stuff and reprogramming ourselves and allowing ourselves to grow, to adapt, to be better, to learn, to heal? And all of those necessary things that are, we got to just push this stuff aside and find out who we are more so.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are all the things that I do in my work with my clients. And it is a process, but it's so worth it. So, first off, it's figuring out what those root causes or those root beliefs are. Right. So, figuring out where does that come from and what is it is important because we need to be aware of it in order to make a change to it, like I mentioned earlier. And so, figuring out that, okay, so I have this underlying belief of you have to work hard to make money. And so, what can I do about that? Right. And so, figuring out what that root is first. And then, what are the thoughts that are going on because of that? What is the self talk? What am I saying to myself? How am I operating? What am I doing in response to that? And how is it affecting me? Like you said, we definitely always look at how is this helping me or how is this hurting me? How's it beneficial? How's it detrimental in your life? So it's important to be aware of those things so you can figure out what could be more supportive. What can help you to not feel bad and not burn out, that you can shift. So what can we shift that belief to? And then it's creating the words to go with it. I think of these habits and these patterns, and like you said, how we're programmed as a pathway. And so we have these neural pathways, but how we can think of it as if it's a road, or a trail through the woods, right? So it starts off as just bushes that you tromp through. In order to create a new path, you got to kind of get scratched up and tromp through some of those bushes and push them aside to get to where you want to go. And then eventually, if you follow that path enough, then it's a true trail. And then things stop growing in your way and you're able to follow that path more easily. And then eventually it gets cemented in and becomes a sidewalk. And then someday you use it enough, it's a road, and then it's a freeway. Well, those things that we were already pre-programmed for are like freeways already. So that is the quickest path that we know in our minds is to go right on that freeway. Well, when we're creating that new path, we start from scratch and we start with some of those words. We have to identify, okay, where was I going before? What was my habit? What was my pattern? And how is that not helpful? So then we can do that pause and choose how to respond. And what happens is then each day, each moment, it's about having the choice, right? That power of choice that we have to choose the new path. It's like, nope, today I'm going to take this new path. Something happens, we would usually emotionally react to. It's like, nope, I'm going to respond and I'm going to go on this path. And so the more we do that over and over again, so creating, statements that are going to affirm us and are all about growth, and then repeating those is taking that path. So, for example, that I am learning, I'm growing, I'm becoming better at this, or, I can do these things. I'm working on doing these things. If we're telling ourselves those supportive statements over and over again, it gives our subconscious something to do and to get on board with. And so all of you can go on the new path instead of your subconscious trying to block you, protect you, like we were talking about earlier, right? Keep you from going outside your comfort zone. It's like, no, I'm going to expand. We're just going to create this new path. And so we're going to choose it over and over again. And then it will get easier. It takes a lot of intentional effort at first, but it does get easier and easier. And so that's how you reprogram, it's figuring out what you're going to be putting in that limiting beliefs place. What is going to be a more supportive belief for you that's going to hurt you, not hurt you, right? It's going to help you instead. And then backing it up with the words. And so then those thoughts or words, right, then turn into better emotions, more supportive emotions. And then when we know better, then we can do better. And so then it's going to be more healthy behaviors. It's going to be more thoughtful words that are coming out, or more thoughtful responses that are coming out. And so a lot of it is kind of like that exercise we were doing earlier about pausing and checking in with ourselves. It's doing that. Yep. It's learning how to pause and stop and choose how to respond in the new way until eventually, you're going to be going down that new path all the time. Now, something to remember is the old path doesn't go away. So when we create a new neural pathway, the old one's still there, it just gets dusty and has cobwebs on it. We're not using it anymore. And so when we're stressed, when we're tired, when we're sick, if our defenses are down physically, our emotional defenses can go down too, which is why it's really important to just practice that good basic self-care. Make sure you're eating and hydrating and sleeping and doing all of those things, because it's easier to stay strong and take that new path when you're taking care of yourself.
That's so true. I mean, those simple things, eating, drinking right, getting enough sleep, so vital to our just
people forget. Self-care is not just like, bubble baths or, whatever people think. I mean, they think it's these frivolous things. Water. Right? Yes. But having water with you all of the time and hydrating and getting up and stretching and moving around every so often, those of us who sit in front of computers and work, that's an important piece of that self-care. Eating and not just saying, oh no, I'm busy, I'm going to push through, I'm not going to eat. At least having something at your desk or something that you can just grab so that you're not neglecting yourself, because those basic foundational pieces of self-care affect us very much emotionally. So your body starts going down, everything else starts going down too. And so, that's with reprogramming, how it works. We have to be aware, we have to replace, and we have to be really consistent and take really good care of ourselves so that we can. And we also need to give ourselves grace and forgiveness and compassion that we're not perfect. And if you happen to take the old path, don't beat yourself up for that. You get to choose again this next moment, this next day, to take the new path. And that's okay, because it's natural for you to want to slip back into those old patterns. It's just, are you catching yourself and then shifting to the new thought again?
Right. Well, and I like what you just said there. We got to allow ourselves to forgive ourselves. Yes. Forgiveness is so huge. And, like, if God can forgive us, why can't we forgive ourselves? Why can't we forgive others? Because that's another thing. Like, if you hold in all this hatred and bitterness and resentment. And all of these things, harboring, that unforgiveness, that's just eating away at ourselves, and once we can choose to forgive that person, and it's not like forgetting per se, because only God can truly forget, but, letting it go, forgiving that thing for that person, maybe also yourself, so you can get past it, so you can heal and move on, right? You talked about also basically affirmations.
I did.
And I think maybe either to some people like myself that didn't understand it many years ago, being young, because you always see these things like in a movie, like, I am good, I am well, I'm, a good salesman or whatever. And it's just like, that's so weird, And but if we do the opposite though a lot of times, and we're like, oh, we're so dumb, I'm so stupid, I'm so fat, I'm so ugly, no one loves me. I mean, it's affirmation in the reverse. It is. And if we can get that kind of negativity out and replace it with something, even if we're not like 100% sold on it right now, but we can say that, I am healthy, I am well, I am, whatever your affirmation is. It could be the word of God, right? Yeah. And all of these different things, you just start repeating them over and over. You touched on it. It gives your subconscious something to do, and then it gets ingrained in there, it gets programmed, right? So now these things come up, and we're able to believe in ourselves, know that we can get through it, and, just overcome, right?
Yeah. Whatever we tell ourselves, our subconscious is going to look for every bit of evidence to back it up. because it
Yep.
thinks whatever you tell it is true. And
Yep.
so if you tell it really negative things about yourself, you're going to find everything you possibly can to back up that as
Mhm.
being true. And so how I teach affirmations is a little bit different because a lot of people have had those movie type experiences, like you're talking about, the act as if or fake it till you make it type of affirmations. And a lot of times that's really hard for people to get results doing because their subconscious is like, no, you're lying. I don't believe you,
Right.
right? So if you say, you know, I am a multimillionaire and you have $100 in your bank account, it's not going to be believable to all the pieces of your mind. It's going to be like, no, I know how much is in our bank. We're not that. Like, they'll reject it. So your subconscious will reject anything it doesn't believe to be true or doesn't align. And
Right.
so what you can do instead that can be really helpful until you're there. So like you were talking about health goals or money goals or anything like that, you can tell yourself that you're working on it, that you're learning how to, that you're growing, that you're doing the things in order to, for example, healthy, right? I'm doing the things in order to be healthy every single day, or I'm learning how to manage my money. You know, I'm growing my bank account more and more every single day. So if you start it with more of the growth type of a statement, learning, growing, becoming better at taking action towards things like that, it
Right.
becomes more believable and it does give your subconscious something to work on. It's like, oh, we're getting healthy. Oh, should start making choices that are healthy. So you could say something like, I'm making healthier choices every single day. And so it's like, today I'm making healthier choices. Okay, great. Let's make some healthy choices. But
Mhm.
instead of saying, I'm 100 pounds lighter, you can tell yourself, I'm working on becoming healthier and, more thin and fit every single day. It's like, okay, let's make some choices that are going to get you there instead of your subconscious just blocking you and saying, nope, don't believe it. I know what's on that scale.
That's good. I like that. It really gives some better clarity too, or whatever.
Mhm.
It's like, it's that baby step mentality almost.
Yes.
Like you remember that movie in Baby Steps,
Mhm.
But
But
that's
it
true.
works though. It's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be believable. It has to be believable and feel achievable. And so if you can just say, hey, I'm in the process of doing that, and then back it up with the actions, you're going to believe it. And then you're going to get to the point where then you can say, I'm healthy. What are some of the ones I've heard? I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise.
There you go.
You get to that point where your mind actually believes you when you tell it that.
Yep. All right. So this has been so awesome. I know we can just talk for hours probably on end about all this stuff.
You could.
Is there anything like you want to leave us with and tell our viewers also how to get a hold of you if they're interested in all this, great advice that you're being giving us today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the last message that I would like to leave everyone with today is that you are so worthy of doing all of this for yourself. And so all it takes is making that decision. And you have that power of choice. You can make the decision to make the change. You can do it today and you can start moving towards it. And it is those baby steps. It is just expanding your comfort zone. You don't have to jump all the way out, but you also don't have to do it alone. And so know that you absolutely can get support in making these changes. It's easier said than done, and I get that. And so please reach out to me if you are looking for support, if you're looking for resources to help you do some of these things, make these changes and recover from and prevent burnout, for example, or you're wanting to reprogram some of the things that haven't been serving and supporting you in your mind, then you can find me on my website. It's psychedupsuccess.com. And you can just click on Work with Jodie. So you can click right there and book a free 30-minute consultation with me. We can explore your options for support. And then I also want to encourage you to go to my favorite resources page on that website. Same thing, psychedupsuccess.com. Just click on favorite resources. You're going to be able to find links to all of my books and the journals, as well as some free resources on mindfulness and on recovering from burnout. And so I want to offer those as gifts to anybody who's listening. And like I said, just take care of yourself so that you can take care of everyone and everything else at your best and your highest.
All right, that's so awesome. Thank you so much, Jodie, for being on the show here yet today. It's been a pleasure as always.
Welcome. Thanks so much, Donato.
Everybody out there, just get motivated, stay motivated, and be motivated.
Thank you for listening to Get Motivated with Donato, where Donato speaks with leaders, authors, influencers, and speakers who share their life journeys with motivational tips, lessons learned, and keys of success that will motivate you to change your life. Follow Donato on Facebook and LinkedIn at Donato Parisi, or go to donatomotivates.com. Remember, you can be anything you want and desire. All you have to do is get motivated.